Come on, y'all. Africa. Come on, say everybody say Africa. Come on, one more time. Africa.
This one says not haunted on this side and haunted on the other, so like I don't know, the bathroom's haunted and the kitchen isn't, or I just figure if I'm going to rent a place that has roommates already, they're going to help with the rent. That's my policy on that stuff. NOLA restaurant ahead of us on the left. NOLA, of course, stands for New Orleans, Louisiana. That's one of Emerald's places. The BAM guy, Emerald Lagasse. Those restaurants. Now, you got Napoleon House Restaurant on the corner on the right. You see the sign shaped like Napoleon's hat. That was the home of the mayor, Nicolas Girard. In the early 1800s, Mayor Girard was an admirer of Napoleon Bonaparte, and so he cooked up this crazy scheme. When Napoleon was in exile in Saint-Helene, Mayor Girard was going to bust Napoleon out of jail and bring him to live out his days here in the mayor's home, and of course nothing came of it except the name stuck. So it's still called Napoleon House. Beautiful courtyard there. In the early 1900s, the French Quarter became a big Sicilian slum. They started calling it Little Palermo. And in 1909, it was so crowded and crime-ridden and dirty that nobody thought twice about leveling this block, all the historic houses that used to be here, in order to build this building, our state Supreme Courthouse. But I gotta say, the cool thing about the courthouse to me now is the fact that justice is dispensed there. No, I'm lying. Y'all know better, right? Let's try again. The cool thing about the courthouse is the movies that are filmed there. Runaway Jury, Pelican Brief, JFK, some others. Over on the right is the Royal Orleans Hotel. Led Zeppelin used to stay here when they were in the area. They have a song, Royal Orleans. You can find it on YouTube or whatever. It's not one of their better songs to be honest, but it's a good story. Their bass player, John Paul Jones, and a drag queen were smoking weed together in his room, and they fell asleep and set the room on fire.
What were they smoking?
Marijuana.
Oh my God.
Imagine that. Fell asleep, set the room on fire.
Such a bad thing.
Can you imagine? So yeah, they wrote a song based on that historic event.
Where is Frenchman Street?
In the Marigny. This is Royal here. Royal has beautiful art galleries and antique stores. I love this antique gun and sword store because, you know, I'm a guy. And when it's better weather, the street performers set up on Royal, the magicians and musicians and all that. Typically, they're all along here. We have one of our landmark restaurants on the right, Antoine's, has been owned by the same family since 1840. They invented oysters, Rockefeller there. So across from Antoine's, Leah's Pralines. Now, let me give you a little pronunciation lesson. If you say pecan pralines, it sounds like fingernails on a chalkboard to us. So I saw me introduce you, my parole officer, Brian, here. I've been being good, tell him. I'm being good. Saw a meme on the internet, had a picture of a porta potty. It said, "This is a pecan." All right, so we call it pecan pralines. But Leah's, Richard Simmons used to work there, and that was his first job. And the owners are old friends of my family. And when they hear me say that Richard Simmons used to work there, they say, you know, honestly, Mark, we would much rather be known for the quality of the product as opposed to the celebrity that used to work here. I just think I ought to get free pralines for giving them a shout out on the tour, but I guess they don't see it that way. Bourbon Street here, Disneyland for drunks, right? And look, here's the thing. I think that, honestly, that everybody needs to experience Bourbon Street at least once in their life. And if you're a Journey fan, I got good news. You can hear Don't Stop Believin' 30 times in one night up and down Bourbon Street. And I think it's a fine song like the first time and a half. But if you love music and you didn't come all the way to New Orleans to hear Journey covers, I can certainly recommend some alternatives. Somebody mentioned Frenchman Street, that's one. You also have the beautiful late night open air art market on Frenchman. They take off Tuesday and Wednesday, so the art market you can catch tonight but not tomorrow. I'll be there tonight. You got these old-fashioned, scary-looking security spikes to make it hard for burglars and bad people to find stuff. It's called guard degree on the wall there, and the spikes on the wall. And look at the camera. Love the juxtaposition of old-fashioned newfangled security. And then this type of spikes here on the poles. This is not an old house, by the way. It's made to look like the old houses, but you see a lot of these. We call those Romeo spikes. You know, keep the daughter up there on the gallery and the boyfriend down on the street, right? The dominant type of architecture throughout the city of New Orleans is a shotgun house. And we got a couple examples coming up here in a minute. So 1 room wide, 3 or 4 rooms, straight back, no hallway, no privacy. You have to go through every room to get to the one behind it. And they call them shotgun houses based on the idea that all the doors are lined up in a row, so that if you open all those doors and shoot a shotgun in the front, the pellets are going to go straight throughout the back without hitting anything. So there's that narrow tan one with blue shutters up ahead on the right, and then the brown one 2 houses down from that. And those are shotgun houses. Now that tan one with blue shutters, $925 there, was up for sale recently. I looked it up. They wanted $750,000. 750,000. The red house in between the 2 shotgun houses here is listed now at over 1.9 million. The brown shotgun house, you have nails over the door and window to keep pigeons from roosting. 3 mailboxes. Now see that? When my dad was growing up in New Orleans, he and his brother and their parents, so 4 of them, shared a single shotgun house about like that with 2 other families. And I don't know how they did it. I looked at a shotgun house myself a while back. The one I looked at had 1 bathroom all the way in the back. So my 2 kids were going to have to go through my bedroom to get to it. And I had no interest in built-in birth control, so. Come on, Samal. Now so as we were going that way, away from the Mississippi River, we were going downhill. Not that you were necessarily noticing, but that's what counts as downhill in New Orleans. Because right by the river is what counts as high ground in New Orleans. We were like 12 feet above sea level there. Here we're pretty close to right at sea level. And where I live, 3 miles that way, I'm 6 feet under already, even though I'm holding on for dear life. So naturally, they built the old city on high ground, what we call the sliver on the river. And the back boundary of the original city was 1 block that way. It's called Rampart Street. You can guess because they had fortifications, ramparts, defending the back of town from attack by American Indians coming from the swamp that direction. So, and it's no coincidence that in Katrina, the flooding started at about the back boundary of the old city. Since they built the old city on high ground, the French Quarter really didn't flood. If the wind blew your roof off, you got wet anyway. But so anyway, the neighborhood across Rampart that way is called the Treme. And the French Quarter, remember I told you, is about to turn 300 years old here in a couple of years. The Treme, that neighborhood recently turned 200 years old. And 200 years ago, when that neighborhood was developed, the population of New Orleans was about 1/3 white, 1/3 slave, and 1/3 free people of color. So we had a lot of slaves, but we also had a lot of people with African ancestry who were not slaves. For the most part, it was those free people of color that were settling on the back of town on the edge of the swamp. So the Treme is often referred to as the oldest neighborhood of free African Americans in the United States. And New Orleans is built in a bend of the river, and the curve of the river makes things kind of confusing. So if you look at a map, you know that the river divides the nation east and west, and we're on the east bank, and the other side is the west bank. So, you know, if you want to get from here to Texas, for example, can't imagine why, but anyway, you would have to cross the river on the way. However, the way the river curves around, you can wake up any day of the year in the French Quarter, provided you're not too hungover to wake up early and it's not too cloudy. You can watch the sun rise over the west bank of the Mississippi. So we don't even bother here all that much with north, south, east, and west. We have our own system. we have Riverside to the right, toward the Mississippi. We have Lakeside to the left, toward Lake Pontchartrain. We have Uptown, which is upriver back behind us, and downtown, downriver the way we're going. So we have Riverside, Lakeside, downtown in front of us, and Uptown behind us, and downtown is downriver and Uptown is upriver. We're going to be turning back toward the river here on St. Anne Street.
And most of these people live here permanently, or you rent it?
There's some rentals, some people that live here, and then some vacation homes where people own it and just come from time to time. You know, some of all of that. It's a mixture. Put your hands up. I get a feeling that I never had before. Come on. Everyone. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. I get a feeling that I never had before. Come on. You're looking at the king of the jungle now. But they hold me down. And the boss of the pictures now. Straight gang back. It's gang bang. See me running through the crowd full of 8 lanes. No trip play. Call your place. Get the G is the understanding. Come on. What? Put your hands up. Put your hands up. I get a feeling never had before. Come on. Everyone. Put your hands up. Like a horse that she showed. We're fighting this with the fire. The whole club was looking at her. What she did, and what she done. Right, I'm saying I love.